Howdy, folks. Spencer here, and today I want to talk to you about the uncertain future for Star Trek Online. Over the past couple of days, there's been some news coming out that there may potentially be some layoffs and forced changes for the STO team. So, in this video, I want to take a look at what's happening, take a look at what happened to Embracer that is leading to these potential layoffs, and go over my thoughts for what this means for STO moving forward. As always, chapters are listed down below. So, what exactly has happened? Well, last week, several Cryptic employees started posting on LinkedIn that they're uncertain of their future at Cryptic and that they are open to job offers. Some of these posts were a bit cryptic, like the one Kale put up was not very direct in stating that, there was anything specifically at Cryptic, just saying that things are a bit weird in the world right now, and it seems like a good time to open this back up to get some job offers. Some of the other posts from some of the other Cryptic employees that put post up on LinkedIn were a bit more direct and basically imply that layoffs are very likely going to be incoming, as has happened to many other game studios throughout the year, especially ones owned by Embracer. Now, this news was picked up by Game World Observer, and this broke out into the wider Stow audience once that article went out. And in response, Kale did comment over on Twitter, stating that he has not been laid off from Cryptic. And to further clarify, none of the teams at Cryptic have changed at this time. And here are some of the LinkedIn posts from other folks on the Stow team and the other teams over at Cryptic. Feel free to pause if you want to go through and read them all. But basically, when doing the research for this video, what I found is that every team over at Cryptic is potentially going to be impacted by whatever happens. There's people on every team wondering if they're going to have a job and making posts like this. And we're also seeing that quite a few senior level people on the various teams are also putting posts like this out. And specifically for Stow, as you'll see in a couple slides, a very significant amount of senior folks are currently unsure about what their future holds. And I just want to remind you guys that at this time, there is no proof that anyone has actually been laid off or left Cryptic, but clearly something has caused quite a bit of internal panic, making many of them rush out to seek out alternative options in case there is indeed a layoff. To summarize everything thus far up to this point in the video, the situation is grim. While most of the discussion has focused on just a handful of LinkedIn posts, the reality is that it is much more widespread for Cryptic than many of you probably have realized. When I went through and was looking at the Cryptic page over on LinkedIn, I went to the People tab, and when I went through and looked through that, about 35 of the 178 people on there have the open to work hashtag thing on their account, which means that they're open to receiving job offers from other companies. Now, some of you are probably thinking, maybe some of these people don't currently work for Cryptic. Maybe that's, just inflating the numbers there. Well, I decided to narrow things down to just the Stow team. And I went in and I looked up the 34 people listed on the in-game credits, specifically on the Star Trek Online development team. And of the 34, 11 of them have that open to work flag, and many of them also have posts talking about uncertainty about the future of working at Cryptic. So clearly, there is a potential for there to be a massive impact for the Stow team. You've got a third of the team currently with post up, quite worried about things, and many of these individuals are also senior folks on the teams that they are on. As you can see here, you've got Kale, the senior community manager, Hector Ortiz, who is not listed on this part of the credits because he works on multiple Cryptic projects, but Hector Ortiz does a lot of things for Stow, like designing the concepts for a lot of ships. Joe Harrington, part of the systems team. Jesse, part of the game design team. The point is, as I go through this, you've got a lot of very senior people. You've got a good chunk of the environment team concerned about their future prospects of working on Stow. And like the entire QA team minus Cryan, with posts currently up on LinkedIn stating that they're worried about the future. Now, I want to clarify again, nobody has been fired or left at this time, but it is a little bit concerning when this many senior people on Stowe are worried enough that they're going out and putting out posts like that over on LinkedIn. Now, you're probably wondering, why is all of this even happening? Well, from an outside point of view, the most likely cause is Embracer. As many of you may recall, Embracer acquired both Cryptic and Perfect World Entertainment back in December of 2021 for $125 million, and then they integrated both Cryptic and Perfect World under the Gearbox umbrella. Now, Embracer purchased many different game studios over the past couple of years. They ended up buying over 100 of them, and they spent billions to do so. They also purchased IP rights for popular franchises like Lord of the Rings. The reason that they were going so crazy buying up all of these game studios is because they thought that they had a nice deal incoming. They had had a $1 billion investment from Savvy Games Group, and there was a deal being planned that would net them an additional $2 billion from Savvy Games Group. This deal fell apart, and the issue is that Embracer spent the money before they got it. So when the deal fell apart, they were left with over $1 billion in net debt. And to counter the debt, Embracer set out a restructuring plan that has them closing or divesting some of the studios they purchased, terminating or pausing some of the ongoing game development projects, decreasing spending on non-development costs like overhead and other operating expenses, and reducing third-party publishing and putting a greater focus on internal IP and trying to get external funding for any large budget games that they do. Now, like many of you, I thought STO would be shielded from any potential layoffs due to its apparent financial success. When Embracer acquired Cryptic back in 2021, we got to see some sales data for Stowe, and it showed that over the course of Stowe's life up to that point, at the end of 2021, the game had over 6 million players and had generated over 240 million in revenue over the course of its life. And we obviously don't have a year-by-year breakdown, but there's been plenty of comments on 10 Forwards going over how Stowe has been doing better and better each year. Now, we've even seen it called out on the annual reports from Embracer. You can see there that Star Trek Online and Neverwinter Online were both directly called out by Embracer as being solid contributors to back catalog sales. So with them being called out as good performers in the back catalog, it was expected that they would probably be left alone. And I think for many of us, we thought that the only thing that would actually take people away from Stowe or Neverwinter would be the upcoming game that Cryptic has been working on for the past couple of years. This is a third-person fantasy action game that Cryptic has been working on for the past couple of years. We don't really know much about it. We know that Bordicus from the Stowe team moved over to it about a year ago, and we know that it is being done in Unreal Engine 5 rather than the traditional Cryptic engine. And we know this because of all the job postings for it, stating that they want people that have experience with Unreal Engine 5. And on the topic of this unannounced game, there's been some of you that think that this might be a Stowe 2, and I completely disagree with that assessment right now. I imagine it's going to be an entirely new IP for Cryptic, and I think that if it was a Stowe 2, that Embracer would have already cut it. The fact is, Embracer, with their restructuring plan, is looking to cut costs wherever they can, and if this unannounced game was Stowe 2, I think that they would have already shut it down and fired everyone working on it, and we wouldn't be looking at a potential layoff for the folks on the Stowe or Neverwinter teams. So again, I don't think it's Stowe 2. The fact that the project is still going at all tells me it's some entirely new IP. And it's time to speculate as to what caused folks over at Cryptic to suddenly worry about their job security. The first one is pretty obvious. For anyone that is working at an Embracer-owned studio, all you have to do is look at the news and you can see that there's studios owned by Embracer that are being forced to do layoffs left and right. I mean, just in the past 2 to 3 months, there's been numerous studios that have had to go in and lay off dozens and dozens of people. And at the end of August, Embracer even fully shut down Volition. That's the studio that made the Saints Row franchise, Red Faction, among many other titles. And all 240 people there were let go. So, I'm if I'm someone over at Cryptic and I'm seeing this news of Embracer just going around, it feels like it's probably just a matter of time until they go around and force some layoffs over at Cryptic. So I think it's quite understandable that anyone over there is probably a little bit worried about their job security and wants to have some options available to them if needed. Now, it could be also that Embracer's already told Cryptic that they need to cut X number of people. That's certainly possible. And it's also possible that Embracer wants Cryptic to cut their operating cost and run their older titles in a lower development or maintenance mode. But again, that's entirely speculation, and none of that is guaranteed. These are just some guesses based on what I'm seeing from all the things I'm looking at. And now I want to go over my thoughts and what I think is going to happen for Stowe. I think that if there is any layoffs or exits on the Stowe team, that development of the game is probably going to slow down a little bit more. I also think that with all of this going on with Embracer, I think that the idea of an STO2 or an engine upgrade for Stowe are completely dead. Either of those would require tens of millions of dollars to do, and an engine swap is not a simple checkbox that you hit. An engine swap is basically just rebuilding the game, so at that point it may as well just be a Stowe 2. Now, Mflux over on Reddit has a really good quote regarding swapping an engine in a game that I'll read off here. It's about as easy as transferring all the ingredients from one cooked meal to make a completely different meal of the same cuisine. Just take the crab out, uncook it somehow, now remove all of the salt, now turn the spicy thing you made sweet instead. At this point, you may be thinking to yourself, isn't it easier to just start over? And you'd be right. Swapping an engine in a game is not a simple thing, and it never has been, and with Cryptic using their own little custom engine, it makes that process even more complicated compared to like upgrading from one Unity version to another. So I think both of those ideas are completely dead right now, and like I said before, the new game that they're working on, if they're even still working on it, I don't think that's Stowe 2. If it was, I think they would have killed the project already. Now, I also do not believe that Stowe will be shut down, nor do I believe it will go into a maintenance mode. Maintenance mode is where the game is still running, but there is no development at all. Stowe still has a decently sized player base, and people still put a decent amount of money in. Go back to the report from Embracer, those annual reports. Stowe and Neverwinter both perform very well. They're not going to shut them down when they're still bringing in money. So I don't think Stowe's going to go anywhere anytime soon. But this is a game that is almost 14 years old at this point, and development of it probably is going to slow down regardless of what happens. And to summarize everything, really, it's an uncertain future. We do not know if anyone is going to be laid off or leave Cryptic. We don't know what Embracer wants to do with Cryptic or STO. What we do know is that something has happened in the past week that has a lot of Cryptic employees, especially those on the Stowe team, worried about their future employment. Now, I think a layoff like this is a terrible thing, and I do wish the best to anyone over there, and I hope that Embracer stays as far away from Cryptic as possible. That's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching, and if any news pops up about this, I will keep you guys all posted. Take care, and again, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.